Well, let's shift our focus to this breaking bit of news coming in. The Enforcement Directorate heat on the Newsclick website that continues. Delhi High Court has issued a notice to Newsclick and its editor-in-chief, Purkayastha. This petition has become fructose. ED has told the High Court it's a criminal conspiracy where crores of rupees have come to the light and they need to be investigated. That's what Enforcement Directorate has told the High Court. The plea is before a bench of Justice Saurav Banerjee at the Delhi High Court. That's the bit of news which is coming in. Earlier, you'd remember that the Enforcement Directorate had conducted raids on the website called Newsclick for alleged charges of money laundering. And ever since that fresh report from the New York Times came into light that raised questions about the Chinese propaganda and the funding of this website, once again, the Enforcement Directorate tightening the news. My colleague Ananya Bhatnagar with us on the broadcast. Ananya, please tell us more.
Well, definitely. The matter was listed before Justice Saurav Banerjee, and after hearing preliminary arguments, he was of the view that, this is a matter which is of merit, and that's the reason we have issued notice to Newsclick and also its editor-in-chief, Mr. Purkayastha. What is very, very crucial to note, Anusha, at this point of time is that the Enforcement Directorate has submitted before the Delhi High Court that this is a criminal conspiracy for paid news, and crores of rupees have actually come into Newsclick, is what Mr. Zoeb Hussain, was appearing for the Enforcement Directorate, had submitted before the court. In fact, the counsels for Newsclick were constantly trying, to delay this particular hearing and say that, this is not something that is urgent. The ED is showing urgency unnecessarily, but the court felt that, there is a merit in this matter and has now issued notice. Now, what is very important is that the application has been filed by, the Enforcement Directorate very, very categorically shows that it has additional material and, in fact, documents that they have recovered, which shows that there was a big and large criminal conspiracy, and there is a clear indication that an offense of money laundering is taking place. So now, how things pan out, whether the ED heat on Newsclick would continue with a vacation, with the vacation of those interim protection orders that are there against Newsclick and its editor-in-chief, or whether the court would not be satisfied with the ED's submissions when it comes to vacating these particular orders. All of these
perspective. Earlier, there was the Enforcement Directorate that had conducted multiple raids on the Newsclick website. There were charges that were filed against this particular website, and an investigation right now is underway. So let's trace it back from 2021 to now. What is the key evidence that Enforcement Directorate has been able to gather, and what has it told the High Court on record so far? Could you give us a brief of the case and how it has panned out, minus the public discourse?
Well, in fact, Newsclick has been accused of running Chinese propaganda, and in fact, what is also very, very categorical to note is that, today also Mr. Zoeb Hussain, who is appearing for, the Enforcement Directorate, has very, very categorically and clearly stated before the court that, there is a larger criminal conspiracy that existed for paid news. There are crores of rupees that have now come in. Though, with regards to, the evidence that is on record, that has not been shared at this point of time in the hearing. However, when Newsclick has now been asked to respond, and the next date of hearing is in September, so there would be a detailed hearing that would be taking place. The Enforcement Directorate would be putting its place with regards to the evidence that it has, with regards to how Newsclick is actually involved in the case of money laundering. So we'll have to wait and watch for that. But at this point of time, the big submission that is coming in from the Enforcement Directorate is that there was a criminal conspiracy, crores of rupees have come in, and this is a clear case of paid news.
All right. So right now what the Enforcement Directorate is doing is that it wants the earlier order that was passed in favor of the website, that needs to be revoked. The Enforcement Directorate has filed a plea at the Delhi High Court, and this is over the investigation related to the news portal Newsclick. The Central Probe Agency has sought to vacate a 2021 Delhi High Court order that had said no coercive action is to be taken against the news portal. Now, in this application, Enforcement Directorate argues that there is fresh evidence of money laundering that has come to record, charges of criminal conspiracy which are being reiterated by the central agency. This order, if we talk about the 2021 order against which the agency has now once again gone before the Delhi High Court, this order had said that no coercive steps are to be taken against Newsclick, its founder or its editor-in-chief Prabir Purkayastha in the money laundering case. When is the matter expected to be heard, Ananya?
Well, Anusha, that is to be heard on September 7th, and very clearly the Enforcement Directorate would be putting forth the submissions, and in fact the reply from Newsclick and its co-founder, Mr. and editor-in-chief, Mr. Purkayastha, would also coming in. Remember that today also it was being tried that, the matter is passed over, and Mr. Dan Krishnan, who was appearing for Newsclick, would actually come and appear before the court. However, the court said that it's issuing notice because it finds merit in the application that has been filed by the Enforcement Directorate. And very, very clearly now, the ED heat is currently on against Newsclick. We've seen not only the Enforcement Directorate heat, but we also saw how Nishikant Dubey in the Parliament also, showed certain documents and said that Newsclick has been running Chinese propaganda. So all of these angles would now be probed by the Federal Probe Agency. Remember that the Enforcement Directorate would more specifically be looking into the money laundering angle of it. They will be seeing as to how and where the money has now come in. And as per their application itself, it says that they have additional material which clearly goes on to say that the offence of money laundering was committed by Newsclick and its co-founders. So whether or not this would turn, after the vacation of this order, would turn into the arrest, would there be more arrests into this particular case? Would there be attachments into this particular case? All of this boils down to September 7th when the matter will actually be heard by the Delhi High Court.
So let's break down the matter for you and how it has been so far. Not to forget that this is Enforcement Directorate which is probing the matter. ED, whenever it looks at a case, it's a predicate offence that the Enforcement Directorate looks at, and for it to prove any charges of money laundering, there needs to be a clear money trail that needs to be established. More importantly, prima facie a case needs to be made out. Not to forget that if somebody is arrested under these charges, securing a bail becomes very, very difficult. So this no coercive order from the Delhi High Court clearly is something that has been protecting the founders, the editor-in-chief, and everybody who's allegedly involved in this case. The matter is still under investigation. Now, Newsclick, you remember, it is alleged to have received dubious funds from the American billionaire Neville Roy Singham to spread Chinese propaganda. Not just here in India, various parties, including the BJP, have spoken about this issue, but even a New York Times report dominated the headlines recently, about which Union Minister Anurag Thakur also spoke of. The public discourse of it, as in what was said in the Parliament, what a union minister said, all of that, of course, forms an important part of a public discourse pertaining to such a high-profile investigation. But when it comes to a court of law, the ED will have to substantiate why there are clear, plausible grounds for them to vacate this order or for them to do away with this order. This order, the shield of the Delhi High Court, has been stopping the Enforcement Directorate from making any kind of arrest in this matter, at least of, Prabir Purkayastha, other founders, and people who are allegedly involved in this entire matter. Let's see what the Delhi High Court does. The next hearing, as my colleague pointed out, is in September. Right now, a notice has been issued. A notice means that Newsclick, its founder, and everybody who's involved allegedly in this matter will come forward to the court, put forward their side of the story. New evidence and what has emerged in the investigation is going to dominate the next course of hearing from here on. But the fact that New York Times published such a scathing report, which was picked up by the government here, cited as a proof that, look, this is not about any kind of propaganda or an attack on free speech, as the opposition was arguing, but this is rather a real, fair investigation that the Enforcement Directorate was doing at this point in time. We'll continue tracking the story and much more here on CNN News 18. For now, we are slipping into a very short break.